So what we're going to talk about today is how we're going to change, at this point in time with this demo, what we were animating or what we were doing is when you clicked on the balloon, what happened? It just faded out. Obviously, I wouldn't be happy with that, and neither should you. I want, explosion. I want some type of something cool to happen, right? So what we're going to do, the way to do this, guys, please listen. The way to do this is actually to work backwards, okay? And this is what I find is the best way to do this, is to work backwards. Hi. Okay, he's looking for an individual who is in the other group. That's what it is. So I'm going to go, so I've got these 4 balloons here, and what we're just going to do is we're going to go back into the symbol and we're going to modify the resulting animation. So if you remember yesterday, the demo, I showed you we have an action script here that basically is telling us when we click on it, okay, when we click on the balloon target, okay, it's going to play this function. The function just says go to the next frame. So all it's really telling me to do is to start an animation that I'm going to build in the timeline that's in the symbol here. And realize, Mr. Brewer and I were discussing this after school, and he goes, oh, you're doing it that way? And I said, well, yeah. He goes, oh, I would have done it this way. Well, they're equally valid. You can do these things multiple different ways. It's really not a big deal. So, a lot of it just depends on however you want to build this thing. So in reality, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back to my balloon, okay? And I've got all these. Oh, nuts! All right. So now that we're back, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how we're going to do this animation. Now, what I've done is I've called a function. The next keyframe starts the animation. The best way to animate a balloon popping up, or one of the best ways, is to actually start backwards. You need to think about how you're going to make all these pieces come together. The other thing that makes it really hard is you've got the stroke of the balloon here, okay, which is going to be a major problem because it's actually going to be, I want to build this in a separate objects. So one of the things that I'm going to do, okay, is we're going to start with the balloon body. So I'm actually going to get rid of all my highlighting and my shading. I'm actually going to delete those layers. Whoops. We'll keep the border for a second here. Okay. And you'll notice that I have the stroke on a separate layer, which you can do very easily just by clicking on it, copying and pasting, putting it in a new layer, and everything like that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get rid of all these frames that I had done before, which are just my simple dissolves, right? So basically all I have right now is I have the bottom section dissolving out, and I have the string falling. So I'm also going to get rid of this bottom section here, remove those frames. And now I'm basically stuck with, whoops, didn't really remove, did it? Remove frames. Ta-da, okay. So now I'm basically stuck with this. What I'm actually going to do now is I'm going to divide this up into sections by which I can start to edit them and do shape tweens with. So one of the ways that you can do that is with the lasso tool. We're going to lock the border and everything else other than the balloon body for right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of create some sections, okay? And actually what I should do is I should create a new keyframe first. So, sorry, insert a keyframe. So now I've got this shape here. And now I'm going to take my lasso tool and I'm going to create a section. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to piece it out here. Get my lasso tool again. Whoops. And then again, I'm going to create a little section. With the black arrow tool, I'm going to move it out. My lasso tool again. Black arrow tool, move it out. Lasso tool again. So can you guys kind of see what I'm doing? I'm kind of breaking this into the pieces that I want to have, this thing explode into. And I'm just going to move them away from each other just a little bit. And by doing this, what I'm doing is I'm actually creating separate outlines. So if I go to the white arrow tool, you can see now how everything kind of has, these are all going to have separate outlines. and this is going to allow me to do a shape tween. Okay, and we're actually going to do the animation backwards, and then we're going to flip-flop the keyframes. So what I'm going to do, please don't do that to my tape. Is that okay? Thank you. Just put that on my desk and leave it alone. So now what I'm going to do is just keep dividing this up with the lasso tool. Well, and you know, one of the things that can help you with this, honestly, is go to YouTube and look up like high-speed photography and popping balloons or stuff like that. You can. There was a TV show called Time Warp that was on Discovery Channel that did a lot of really cool stuff in slow-mo. And you can get really, honestly, you can really look at the way that all comes together. Welcome. Hello. Grab a seat. And you can really animate. So let me just keep dividing this up here. Okay. So I'm just going to keep dividing it up into pieces. And I may not like how this eventually works, but I'm going to get there after some, just kind of playing, making it jaggy, making things jaggy so that it works. Okay. See how I'm starting to get this? Now these two are still stuck together because when I moved it, it didn't. So I'm going to divide it up here into separate pieces. And the cool thing about this is that using the keyframes really allows me to animate these things. And like I said, what we're going to do is we're going to work backwards. So I'm just about done here. Black arrow tool. There we go. So now I'm starting to get it. Now maybe I want to take these and divide them up into some more pieces here. And the cool thing about this, and this is one of those things that's just really neat about Flash, is that because of the way Flash works, these are still all on one layer. So when I apply the tween only has to be applied once. If I wanted to separate them all out as different layers, I could definitely do that, but I don't think there's any need for that. And what we're going to do is we're going to use our balloon border kind of as our, when we decide to put it back together again, I'm going to extend that border, and that's going to tell us where the balloon needs to be. And then the bottom section, I'm actually going to animate falling with the string. So I'll add a motion tween to the bottom section too, and it'll fall with the string, and that way we have a better look. So basically now I've got this, okay, and now I'm going to right-click here, and I'm going to insert a frame. And so I've got all these things again. Now I'm going to insert a new keyframe, okay, and I'm going to start putting things together again. And this is where I can insert my balloon border, okay, to kind of help me look at how I'm going to do this. So I can bring all these back together again. They may not fit perfectly. That's okay. And by using these keyframes, what I've done is given myself a balloon. And you know what? Some of these cracks are not going to go away. That's fine, because remember, I kept my original keyframe, totally intact. Now see how this is, I'm gonna lasso this one because I can't move these two because now they're part of the whole object. So I'm gonna lasso, select this. Okay, there we go. And now I can move it in here. I like the cracks that are still showing up in here. I think it looks cool. So we'll keep it in here like this. Okay. So now that I've done that, let's go back to this one. And now I'm going to use the A tool. And I'm basically going to grab these and kind of move them. Now this is where it gets dangerous, guys, because this is where Flash sometimes does things that aren't very cool. So what I'm actually going to do here is right now is where I'm going to shift this. I'm going to take this keyframe, I'm going to drag it over here. Okay? Then I'm going to take this keyframe, I'm going to drag it back here. So now it's going to go there to there. So I flip-flopped my keyframes. Bring this one back in here. remove these frames. Now I'm going to add my shape tween right now so I can see what it's going to be doing. Because it does some weird things. Yeah, and that's where sometimes Flash is not really good. So here's what I'm learning right away. Do you know what I'm learning? What do you think? Put them in separate layers. Because the shape tween's not going to do what I want. And that's actually not going to be that hard to do. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 layers. Ready? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So now I'm just going to go back here. Watch this. I'm going to go to my end keyframe. Okay? I'm just going to click on them, copy. Let's just start at the top one. Actually, we'll make the top one this bottom one. So then the second one, we'll just go left to right. So here, copy, click into the layer, and then you're going to go paste in place. The paste in place is very important, by the way, because when you do paste in place, it puts it back in exactly the place you copied it from. If you just do copy and paste, it'll put it in the center, which really kind of stinks. So now let me turn this off. Or no, not turn this one off, lock it, go back, and I'm going to delete that one from my original. Okay, so that I know which ones I've done. Copy, click, paste in place. Okay, turn it off and lock it. Delete. Copy, actually I can probably delete originally anyway. So copy, delete, click on my layer, paste in place, lock, delete, okay. Go to the next one, copy, delete, paste in place. What I'm doing here, guys, is actually really simple, but it's tedious work, right? And the problem with that is that it's easy to screw things up because you get kind of bored and tired of doing it. But at the same time, it's really important. Lock, turn it off, and the turning off thing is really important so that you know what you're doing. Copy, paste in place. Oops, I didn't delete it. So lock, turn off, delete. Okay. Copy, delete, paste in place. Okay. Turn it off. I'm in my last couple here. Copy, delete, edit. Oops. Got to click on the new layer. See, that's what happens is you get used to it and then you make a mistake and you don't realize it. Copy, delete, new layer, paste in place. Okay. Turn off, lock, last two. Copy, delete, edit, paste in place. Okay. And last one. Copy. I almost deleted it before I copied it. And paste in place. So now what I've done is I've created all my pieces. Oops. I just did this. So copy that, delete that out of the top one. Somehow I copied those both together. See, now there's nothing here. So edit, paste in place. Uh-oh. Thank you for undos. All right, so I'm just going to go right back to here. Okay. So what do I got here? Turn that off, lock. Okay. So make sure I just copy that one. Copy, delete. Okay, there we go. Edit, paste in place. So now you can see basically I built a whole bunch of layers. And all these, I don't even want them to show up, okay, until the second frame. So there we go. Now I'm going to remove this tween. I'm going to remove this keyframe because this keyframe has all of them in there. So we're just going to clear that keyframe. And we're going to bring this keyframe back. Okay. Remove frames. Okay. So now you can see what's going to happen. Whoops. Let's turn. It starts with the whole balloon, and then this is where it starts to break up. So let's show that. Okay. So now what I want to do is I'm actually going to go, and I can actually just turn these back on. Now I can actually start to move them back together again here at this keyframe. So, and they won't interfere with each other because they're all on separate layers now. And again, having little cracks show up is probably going to look better, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. Right? Because it's actually probably a good thing.
I don't understand how it's a good thing.
Because it's starting to pop. Because it's still together in the first frame. Because I'm using, this is a copy. The original body is still intact here. So the next frame is going to be your first crack, and then we're going to go back here, and now we're going to animate all of them cracking. So then we'll go here, we'll create keyframes for all of them. And now I get to kind of explode them. So I'm just going to grab each one, pull it out a little bit. We'll deal with the border later. Sorry this is so rushed, but fire drills have a tendency to do that. And now I can also do individual shape tweens for each piece. So what I can do is just right-click on each one of these and create a shape tween. And let's see what it looks like. So now they're just moving. Now at these keyframes, I can take the A tool and I can start, which is the white arrow tool, I can start changing their shapes and flattening them a little bit like they're pieces that are flying. And remember, this is going to be really fast too. We want it to be a fast animation, so it doesn't have to be, perfect. But now what I've got is I've got this kind of change, and you can see how it's going to, see how that one's growing and shrinking? So same thing with this one. And I'm using that shape tween to kind of animate these pieces flying apart. And then what else am I going to do at the very end? I'm going to animate their alpha so that they start to disappear. Okay? I'm going to even animate little things like that, like they're bulging out and stuff like that. So, having done all this, we've got a few more minutes left here. Whoops. That's all right. Doesn't really matter. That does, though. Sometimes it's hard to click on the individual points. You really need to jump in, zoom in here. There we go. Because sometimes they're on top of each other. You got to watch that. Oops. Not quite sure what I did there. Oh, apparently it doesn't like that. I'm not sure what I'm doing that's making it so mad, but there we go. And remember, you can also tween the colors and stuff like that, so I can, like I said, make it invisible. Anyway, let me just do another couple big ones. You get the idea, right? You guys are getting the idea? Okay. Let's just see what it looks like in the game now. Okay? Okay, so I've animated a few of them. You could probably even use the transform tool and shrink them down if you wanted to. I'm not sure how that's going to work with the shape tween. Well, it's working all right. There we go. It's not exactly what I had in mind, but it'll work. Okay? All right, so it doesn't look too bad. And I'm actually, for the sake of time right now, I'm just going to remove the frames on the border. So what's going to end up happening is the border is just going to disappear. Boom. All right? And this is all going to happen in a half a second. Okay, so this is all happening in a half a second. The last thing I want to do is I want to take the bottom section here, and we'll just have it disappear. That's all right, boom, for now. But what I would do is, remember how my string is falling down? I would make it fall with the string, okay? But that's okay. We'll just leave it. So now we've got this. We've got the code. Let's save it, and then we're going to export the movie. So now watch what happens when I click on the balloons. Boom. Now, what's your critique? A little slow. I think the animation needs to be a little faster, don't you? It's a popping balloon after all, right? So that's as easy as going back into the code, highlighting these. Let's make it like this. Shift key, highlight, remove these frames. Take this, move it back. The motion tween has to move a little differently. And then let's bring our action script right over. And then again, we have to remove these frames or else the animation will keep playing. Okay, there we go. Save and preview. Now let's see what happens. Pop, pop. Yay. This is where actually you're right. I think it could be faster for the pop, but I think the string is falling too fast. So I might lengthen the string, bring my action script out one frame beyond it, save, and go. But you're right. I bet you it could be a lot faster. Let's see how this looks. Ah, that's better.
The string still looks like it's falling.
Yes, the string's still falling pretty fast. But, guys, you get the idea, right? All you're doing is you're telling the movie to stop and wait. When you click, it goes to the next frame, and then you build your animation. Here's the real big key that I want you to get from today. When you're modifying a shape, a lot of times you make the original, then you make a duplicate for that second frame, and then you work backwards. You divide it up, you separate everything, then you go forward in time, you create a new keyframe, then you bring it all back together again, and then you flip-flop those keyframes. Okay? And that is a lot easier because you're starting with the destructive piece. Okay? You can start dividing it, and then you bring it back together again so it looks like it's together, and then you'll get something. And then also realize if it's a fast enough animation, like that is, you know, it doesn't have to be incredibly detailed. You get the idea. It's flying in the pieces. It still looks really cool. Does that make sense to everybody? And now you're using your shape tweens, you're using your motion tweens, you're using your coding, you're using your event listeners and all that sort of stuff that we've taught you in the last 3 weeks, and now hopefully you've got a good idea of how to make a game and do a little animation and stuff like that. Does that make sense to everybody? Question?
Do we have to follow these restrictions if I make it?
What's that? You can go as long as you meet the minimum requirements of the thing.
Like instead of the balloon disappearing, I want to hold hand and like grab it, pull it away, and then like.
Absolutely. I'd totally be okay with it. The minimum, when we write this, what we're going to do is we're going to call this that somehow when you click on the object, the object is destroyed, disappears somehow. However you choose to do that, if a hand comes up and grabs it, or a dart flies at it and pops it, you can add more, but the minimum requirements will have to stay the same. And we'll have that handout for you guys tomorrow. Okay? The bell is about to ring, so if you were logged in, make sure you log out.